after update 2.6.7, which brought some features, probably the most notable ones being the static defense boost on first and second release, and then also the changes to race boosts and squad boosts, where boss damage permanent squad boost was removed, and then also on race boosts, the ability to set both race boosts to the same boost has been removed. Basically, this is to encourage diversity in boosts because it was pretty much standard. Just about all of the squads of faction had increased boss damage, and just about the races were pretty much always running double increased squad or faction boosts. So that sort of makes it so there's not really much interactivity within that whole system of choosing boosts when there's not really a decision you have to make. It's just automatic. You take this boost or else your squad is irrelevant. Then it's kind of that's something that I had to adjust. Um, so this week's Ellison's Corner, I am resting this week. For the rest of this week, it's Wednesday as I'm recording this, and very hot over here. But I'm going to be resting for the rest of this week, probably most of next week, because I really want to minimize my activity so that my hand will get better as fast as possible. And then hopefully, if everything goes well, I also ordered a new ergonomic keyboard and mouse. Hopefully, if everything goes well, by about the 15th, I'll be able to start working again. It'll be a smaller amount of work. I'll be limiting it. I'll do like probably work sessions of about an hour. I'll do like an hour work, take an hour break, hour work, take an hour break, hour work, take an hour break, so that my hands get plenty of rest in between. That's sort of my plan for now. Assuming my wrist feels better enough by about the 15th, I'm hoping to start working again then. I did put in work on this update because this update was important. It needed to get out. It couldn't wait 2 weeks for my hand to get better because the things in the update were really, really negatively impacting the game. So, on to this week's questions, starting off with the future update questions. First, what is planned for Stealth Force Squad or Exequi soon? Most melee users are resigning from Stealth Force and Exequi and then joining Medical Squad or Curandero. So, the first thing planned is a change to Deathmark. So Deathmark is going to have higher base damage, but then a little bit less percent on the effect. So what that means is in the situation where you're not able to trigger the Deathmark effect, you won't be losing out on as much damage. For instance, right now it's like 10 base power and like 400% effect. Maybe we change that to like 20 base power and 200% effect so that you do more damage in the event that you're not able to get a second proc off. But when you get the full proc, it's not like overwhelmingly powerful where you're just one-shotting people with it or anything like that. Okay, next question. What do you think of the idea of adding in a dummy AI sort of thing to test out a custom sword before you buy it? You basically only have one shot at getting it right before you have to buy a heap of shards to tweak it. So you do get a substantial amount of custom tokens with the custom when you purchase it. I think you get 25 or 50 shards free or something worth of custom tokens free. And then you can also earn more custom tokens from Kyoto City activities. So you don't even necessarily have to buy a heap of shards. The one thing with that is if you're changing a core boost. But picking the right core boosts is a lot easier than, picking the exact moves you need as well. So it's a lot easier to, let's say you can pick if you don't have many shards, like you don't have the ability to buy shards, you might pick a more general purpose sword. So you might pick, standard set of core boosts like boost, penetration, and resist, or the popular boost, residual core, and resist. So you might pick a set of cores like that, and that set of cores is going to do fine, even if you don't have the shards to change it. As long as you pick one of those sort of like main groups of core boosts, you're going to be able to do fine with it. I'll be continuing to balance those sets of core boosts so that as long as you pick, one of the more general purpose strategies that has, you have like offense boost, you have resist, and then you have one of 4 options for your secondary offense boost, which is like berserk, penetration, residual weakness. I'm going to keep working on making sure all those 4 secondary offense cores are viable. So as long as you pick those cores, you're probably good. Then afterwards, if you want to change any specific moves, you can earn custom tokens from in-game activities. Now also, I announced this in chat, but I am planning to make it so that you can purchase a custom sword with custom tokens. So what's going to happen is if you don't already have a custom sword, all of the things that right now drop custom change tokens we'll drop custom purchase tokens, and you will need 300 custom purchase tokens to purchase the custom. So it's a 2-to-1 ratio on how many it takes. That does mean that on an alt, it's only going to take 200 custom change tokens because the normal cost is 150 shards, or on your alt, if you already have a custom on another character, it's 100 shards. So the cost in tokens is just going to be 2 times whatever the cost would be. So 300 shards for your first custom, or 200 or 300 tokens for your first custom, sorry, or 200 tokens for your second custom. So that's how that'll work. I don't have an exact date on when that will be in, but I'll probably be doing that relatively soon, as from a technical standpoint, it's not that much work. So it might even be in the 2.6.8 update. Next question, would you ever consider making squad or faction specific chats? And do you have any plans in the future to give captains in a squad more options to interact with their squad and faction, or interact more with their squad and faction? So squad and faction chats is something I've already thought about, and basically I don't want to do this until we have more activity in the game, because right now between 3 chats it's already hard enough, or like they're not always active all the time already. So before dividing things from 3 chats into like 30 chats, I would rather get each thing moving a bit more so that we don't just have a bunch of empty chats. I've played with the idea of putting like a shout box or something where people would leave like long-term messages, but I'm not sure how much that would really benefit. So for right now, I think I'm going to keep it as is, where we have race chat and mixed chat, and then when we get more users, then I'll potentially add in squad and faction chats. Okay, next question. Could you maybe add a notification history bar or something where we can see the last 10 or so squad/race notifications? Oh, like alerts. Yeah, that would require a significant technical change, because what happens is right now, as soon as the next alert is made, the previous alert is completely deleted. So it's not even in the system anymore. So we'd have to completely change that to store all of the previous alerts, and then um, be able to show them on a list. It's not a bad idea though. I can see how that could be useful, so I will consider doing that. That's all for the future update questions. Next section we have game questions. Is it possible to lower the level gap in which you can attack or be attacked? In theory. In theory, of course, it's possible. Technically, that's not a difficult thing to accomplish. It's just that um, basically there's a lot of decisions that I have to make based around the fact that players want to have fun and be active. And even if here's an example. Let's say I made the level gap even like 5 levels, right? 5 level gap. As soon as you get to the top of the rank, you're screwed. Because you're going to be like, let's say you're rank 6, you're level 70, you're going up against a level 75. That level 75 is going to be way more. They probably have capped moves, capped stats. They're still going to wreck you. So there's always going to be, unless you're at the very top of like a rank or something, there's always going to be somebody out there who's just going to pwn you. And there's going to be multiple people like that. So, from that sense, I have to decide of balancing how much can you get wrecked with how active can we make PvP. And I want to ensure that PvP stays fairly active. Um, so I don't want to overly restrict right now the level gap in which you can attack or be attacked. Again, this is another one of those things that when we get more players, it's possible. Like, perhaps when we get more players, I could restrict even Kyoto to be your rank only. So, you know, it's like if you're rank 5, you can only get attacked by other rank 5s in Kyoto. I could potentially do that kind of restriction once we have more players. But for right now, it sort of needs to stay the way it is. Okay, next question. Where is the substitute Soul Reaper squad? Okay, well, conceptually that doesn't make sense, because substitute Soul Reapers are sort of like, you could think of them like independent contractors. They sort of do their own thing. They might get assigned jobs, but there's no like squad of them, because they're not part of the main Shinigami force. They're separate. They're substitute, so it wouldn't really make sense to have one. Next question. I'm glad you guys gave me the chance for 7 days of Aura, and it was great. Thank you for giving me such a chance. Much love. No problem. We do that for all the new users. As soon as you hit Level 6, I believe it is. You get a week of that. We wanted to let everybody try it, see how it is, because or it really makes the game a bit nicer to play. It gives you some nice quality of life features and even little extra training gains, especially on the longer trainings, for if you can't be online as much. It's pretty nice. So we definitely wanted to let everybody try that out and see how it is. Uh, Next question. Why are there still 5 ranks of swords / res? It seems like without a legendary, mostly custom, you can't be competitive in the game. Why not change the sword system to be only 2 ranks? I would think it is important for everyone in the game to be able to compete, even if they get unlucky with their given sword. You could keep the legendaries as is, but make the second one 2 boosts only. Of course, 2 boosts is hugely inferior to 3, so what if you have the boost percentage higher than if you had 3? I think all swords should have 3 moves. I think a change like this will increase the number of players that are interested in the higher ranks, pulls those in that can't afford customs. This is a really interesting suggestion that I haven't thought a whole lot, but I will probably start thinking about this a lot more going forward because um, for the one thing, I already mentioned this, but I am going to be making it so you can purchase a custom with custom change tokens. However, that will still take a long time, and we do want to make the game fun in the meantime. So, I will consider perhaps at lower ranks, the lower rank swords, like at a lower rank, a lesser sword is still pretty viable. Also, a very important distinction to make here is a sword that only has 2 moves, that does not mean the sword does not have an ultimate. On a sword with 2 moves, the second ability is ultimate power level. And on those swords, the abilities are not like a lesser sword does not have weaker abilities than a legendary. The ability power is set the same. And on the lesser sword, you'd have 1 normal ability and 1 ultimate, instead of having like 2 normals and 1 ultimate. So you still have the ultimate ability, which is pretty important distinction to make. Let's see here. But apart from making custom change tokens or custom purchase tokens rather available to purchase a custom with, I will consider perhaps bringing the ranks of swords closer together in power. The whole thing about with 2 boosts, you have a higher percentage than if you had 3. That is already the case with the greater sword. With the greater sword, you can get I think it's like something like 15% boost instead of 11%. So you do get more power. What I do is I have a number, and that number gets divided among the number of core boosts. So it's like lesser, you get like 18% total. Common might be like 24% total, and so on and so forth. It just keeps increasing. But at least bringing the ranks of swords closer together, so that there's not as much of a gap between them, is definitely something we could do. And I'm also planning to decrease the roll chances of lesser and common swords, so that there's a higher chance you get a greater sword. The other option would be removing the lesser rank altogether and converting all existing lesser swords to commons, and then probably increasing the percentage on the commons, which I will consider that. I'll consider that. I'm going to make a note right now. Let me put my bug tracker here. Consider removing lesser rank and upgrading all lessers to commons. Okay, next question. Can you spread the Friday move boost over different times over the weekend? It falls from about 0200 until 1000 for me, so I don't get much use out of it. That's a good point. Yeah, I'll make a note about that too. Okay, change weekend move boost to work in 2 different time zones for G American versus. Okay, I'll go ahead and schedule that for update 2.6.8. Oh, next question. Here's an interesting one. What is the biggest mistake you have made in the design and implementation of WoB, and what would you do differently now? Biggest mistake I've made in the design or implementation of WoB. That's a hard question because I've been working on WoB for such a long time. And also, most of the mistakes that I know about I fixed. The major ones anyway. But design and implementation of WOB. What is the biggest mistake I've made? I don't know. Well, I'll answer this a little bit differently. Rather than saying the biggest one, because I can't really think of like one biggest mistake that stands out. I mean, obviously there's things like not putting in grid battles from the start, but that was just a really good idea somebody had that I went with and expanded immensely on. Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to think about that more. Okay, next, if you had been working on WOB as your one and only focus, how long would it have taken from beginning to now in terms of months? So currently we are 7.5 years into WOB. Okay, not 7.5, 7.25. But we'll just say 7. So most of that time was spent with me having to spend like 10 hours a day at my day job. Okay, well, not most of that, but from about late 2011 to mid 2014 or early 2014, I had to spend most of my 10 hours a day at my day job. So that really put a hamper on WOB's development. I guess I would say if I hadn't had to work that day job and just been working on WOB full time the whole time, maybe a little more than half the time. Maybe it would have taken 4 years instead of 7 to get where we are right now. That's probably a fair assessment. We would have been about here in like 2014 instead of 2017. Sounds about right. Next, LSM stalling is starting to get out of hand again, with players trying to say they're just avoiding boost. I understand the idea and even agree with it, but recently I have fought battles with no attempts even to attack me until I completely pool out. They use excuses like, I am avoiding your boost, even when I am on the edge of my lightning. With melee, they just spam barriers or move boost, and I cannot even touch them. If I dissipate it, then I cannot live through the next 2 attacks to even try to counterattack, and it gives them that first turn hit. They do not like what happens, they just run and heal the next turn barrier. I try to AoE push into them boost. I don't understand. So I can jump to them and other tricks to get closer, but I cannot go through multiple squares of AoEs and do anything but set myself up to be attacked. I try to get around their defenses, but they literally do not try, as seen in this battle where he constantly waited since it preserves his pools and it will just pull me out. I don't see the battle ID attached. Oh, maybe this was that random PM I got on my main account instead of the LSM's corner account. I'll have to check that later. So regarding stalling, I have not implemented the anti-stall mechanics yet because I've still been gathering data. I probably would be working on them right now if it wasn't for my hand. That's one of the next major things that's on my list. Although with the pushback here, probably my priority is going to shift a little bit to the event, but because I really want to get this event out so it doesn't conflict with the tournament time frame. I will definitely work on getting those anti-stall mechanics in before the tournament. So it is the beginning of April right now. I'm probably gonna have to spend the next week and a half or 2 weeks resting, and then probably the 2 weeks after that getting the event finished. If possible, I'll try to get them in by the end of this month. If not, I'll work on them early in June. But I'd like to get those in as soon as possible as well so we can refine them. They may be a step-by-step process so that they don't too dramatically impact things. But basically what my goal with those mechanics is to identify as many different possible factors that go into somebody fighting to stall instead of fighting to win, and determining when someone is like, what exactly constitutes someone using too many defensive moves, which takes, to be able to do it accurately, it takes just a ton of data. So all of the battle IDs that everybody's been submitting about people stalling, I've been putting them all in a gigantic list so that I can figure out what are all of the commonalities between these battles. So I can target only the things people are doing when they're stalling and not punish legitimate strategies. By all means, please keep submitting supports when someone is stalling. Please submit a support and say, I know this might not be against the rules, but this person is stalling. Please consider this for anti-stall mechanics. And I will review every single battle log and take the data and put it into it. Next question. I really loved the video. I'm assuming this refers to last week's Awesom's Corner. I actually was able to understand all these in-battle things that way, compared to reading, which always confuses me. Is it possible to make this month all video? Well, this month probably will be all videos, just due to necessity, because I'm trying to avoid typing as much as possible. And even when I get back to work, assuming everything goes well and I'm able to get back to work within 2 weeks, um, then I'll probably still be making these video because I'll be limiting my work time and my typing time. So it'll probably be easier to just make them videos. So these are probably going to be all videos for at least a month, maybe 2. And then after that, if people like the video format, I may start alternating. So I do like video 1 week, text the next week, video 1 week, text the next week, etc. Okay, it looks like that is it for the game questions. Last category is the miscellaneous questions. First up, if you could be any Assassin's Creed character, who would you be, why, and weapons of choice? Okay, this is a tricky question because when you're talking about being an Assassin's Creed character, you have two major factors that go into it. There's your abilities and how fun they are. Never mind. I know who I'd be. I'd be Edward Kenway, obviously. I think that would far and away be the most fun of any Assassin's Creed character. Because if you look at like Altair and Ezio, they were in these like really hostile, mean situations, and they had like tragedies in their past and stuff like that. But Edward Kenway just had a ton of fun all the time. He was just a pirate. Who doesn't want to be a pirate? So yeah, I'd probably be Edward Kenway. And then weapons of choice. Uh, dual swords. Dual swords is pretty fun. Yeah, that's pretty fun. Next question. Seriously, don't say you haven't been tempted to try coding or even playing some games during your healing time or even master. You keep asking these questions about that. I see you. I see you. So I am tempted to try coding all the time. It is very frustrating for me to not be able to work during the time when I'm healing. But I know even if I work a little bit, it's just going to aggravate my rest and push back the time when I'm going to be able to be back to work 100%. So I'm trying very hard. Um, I've had success at not coding. I haven't had as much success. I've slipped a little bit on not typing at all. I need to really try to not type at all. So I implemented the speech to text, but sometimes I forget to use it, and I'll be typing in chat instead. Or someone will ask me something on Skype, and I'll be typing on Skype, and then I forget that I shouldn't be typing very much. So, and the other thing, since you keep asking about this repeatedly, I will answer it in a generic way, which is to simply say that 5 to 10 minutes of moderate activity is not what's going to be the primary stressor. It's more sustained activity for longer periods, like 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, that really aggravates the wrist. And also, there's different types of motions. So using the mouse, for instance, is like this, where you're moving it side to side and clicking like this, and then using the keyboard is like this, which are both different motions. So different motions do not necessarily aggravate the tendons in the same way. But the coding and the playing games I've completely cut out. For a couple days last week, I was playing on the PlayStation 4 because the controller didn't seem to be aggravating the issues. But I didn't want to take any chances because the recovery is being a bit slow. So I don't even want to like take the chance that might be slowing it down. So I stopped that entirely. And next question is sort of related. Do you think the resting has been making fast progress on your wrist, or it's still not enough and could take some more weeks? Definitely going to take more weeks. The best word I can say about my recovery is it's very slight and very slow. It usually feels slightly better. It doesn't feel like as bad, but I haven't yet seen the low level of permanent improvement that I need to. I'm going to try to really cut down hard on the typing. Now that this week's update went out, I don't have to think as much about making sure it's ready. Um, so I'll really be trying to cut out the typing, try to avoid typing on Skype, avoid typing on WAB, and just rest my hand and ice and take anti-inflammatories as much as possible. And I'm optimistic that maybe within 2 weeks I could be back to be able to start doing work slowly, like maybe 2 hours a day. And then if I can do 2 hours a day, I'll start with that and I'll do a mixture of work and then I'll also do stretches and wrist strengthening exercises and build up from there. So maybe I'll work up to 3 hours a day and then 4 hours a day and just keep going up from there. Next question. What would you say the timeline or length of time is for leveling from a human to a Vastolorde or legendary Shinigami? I don't mean the time it takes to train a game, I mean the actual time story-wise it takes for a player character to become a Vastolorde or legendary Shinigami. So Vastolorde I don't have a good frame of reference on because they really didn't show any concepts of time. However, legendary Shinigami, we have a better frame of reference because we can define this as someone who is an elite captain, you could say. So even among the captains, they're stronger than a normal captain. And those we have some good examples of. Like we have, for instance, Kyoraku, we have Ukitake, Genryusai's two students. We have Genryusai himself, who is also sort of in that category. And then you also have, on the flip side, you have those who have been seen to be about lieutenant level, like, for instance, Rukia and Renji. And if I recall correctly, Rukia and Renji, it was about 100 years ago, 100 years before the start of the series, that they became Shinigami, or somewhere around there. I think it was around there. So if that's the case, then, or maybe it was more. No, I think Rukia was supposed to be about 350 years old at the time of the series. I don't remember where I heard it. But so if we take that to mean to get to lieutenant level or captain level, it can take about 200, 300 years. And then we know, I believe Yamamoto was captain or captain commander at the time of the series. He'd been captain commander for like 1,000 years. So I would say it's probably a safe bet to say it takes somewhere between 700 to 1,000 years to reach the legendary Shinigami or elite captain level, unless you have extra circumstances like you're a prodigy like Kitsugaya or something like that. How do you think? Next question is, how do you think Segunda Etapa works? It's never explained in the anime manga, and the best that I can come up with is that the initial resurrection is an initial release of the Arrancar's true form, much like what Shikai is to Bankai, and that in order to achieve it, a condition has to be met just like Bankai. In the case of Segunda Etapa, it would probably be either through gaining enough power as an Arrancar or skill in using a resurrection, maybe accepting something related to what made them a hollow or something their hollow power embodies, such as Ulquiorra, and accepting that he suffers true despair. Read his background story for details. I'm just curious because it's a major part of being a hollow, at least R7 and R8 in this game. Yeah, so the Segunda Etapa is very interesting because it's like they clearly defined how Shikai and Bankai differ, which is like Shikai, you're sort of using your Zanpakuto's power, but you're not fully embracing it. You don't fully know them. You're not able to fully materialize them and really sort of not really become them, but I don't know. I don't know the right word for it. But for Segunda Etapa, with the limited information that we do have, and Urikyoto being the only one shown using it, um, it's very possible. It's while it's possible that it could be related to their aspect. So, like for Urikyoto, he was the whole nihilistic and the despair thing, right? So it's that could be one possible explanation. The other possible explanation would be depending on how much they're able to maintain their hollow identity. Because sort of there's this weird thing with Arankar where they start out as hollow, and then when they become an Arankar, it's like their hollow powers get sealed back into their sword. So the possible explanations for going Resurrection Segunda Etapa could include not just having their hollow power, but if they're able to sort of access the Shinigami, part of the Shinigami equivalent um, of their power, and sort of fuse it in with it, so they're able to actually access more of the Shinigami side of their power and merge that in to gain greater power. That could be another possible explanation. But it's hard to say for sure. Next question. Have you tried playing CSGO? No, I have not. I'm not that into competitive first-person shooters. Usually the first-person shooters I play, I'll just play like campaign. I played multiplayer online first-person shooter back in Call of Duty World at War. That was the last one that I played online. I actually played it online quite a bit, and I got like decent at it. But after that, I haven't really. It's just a matter of time. Um, most of my competitive gaming time. It takes a lot of like time and effort to be like really good at a online multiplayer game. And I'm the type of person that I really hate being bad at multiplayer. So if I get into a game, I'm gonna put a lot of time into it trying to get really good for a multiplayer game anyway, because you're competing against other people. So I'm just the natural type of person that when I get into it, I really have to put a lot of time into it, try to get really good. So since the World at War days, after that sort of time and effort for me has mostly been consumed by either work or League of Legends. League of Legends is the one competitive game I played. So after that, I've just not really played any other competitive first-person shooters. Same reason I don't play Overwatch. Next question: if you could decide which butt your girlfriend has, what would it be? So I guess this question is just like asking what type of butt I prefer. So there's like, well, this is a funny question to answer. In my mind, there's four categories. You've got like the flat category where it's just like legs, it just comes up, legs come up, turn to the back, nothing else there, right? So you got that. Then going up from that, you have what I guess I'll call normal round, where you got like, you got some roundness going on there, right? It's not just legs, you got the roundness. Just like, the normal girls usually will have like this size. Then moving up from the normal like curvy round, you got the Brazilian level. Now, if you've seen Brazilian girls, I don't even gotta explain this. It's the Brazilian level. That's all there is to it. So I'm not even gonna elaborate further on that. And then up from the Brazilian level, you have the like, this is the like I'm trying too hard level where you got like the Kim Kardashian kind of thing going on. Some probably had implants. And that level, it's kind of like maybe not so much. But level 2 and level 3, so the normal, the Brazilian, both of those are great. Don't really have a strong preference between the two. I like both of them. Just not at the extremes. Not like super skinny, not like super implants or anything like that. Just like normal, curvy, it's fine. And then next question, what's your favorite pickup line? I don't have a favorite pickup line. Although the nerdy one that I said in chat the other day, I laughed for a couple minutes at that. The girl, I'd like to clone your repo. That's a pretty good one. Pretty good one if you're a programmer. If not, you're probably just like, what the heck is he talking about? But for a programmer, you're like, that's pretty funny. Next question: could God create a stone so heavy that even he could not lift it? All right, let's set some parameters here. So by God, we're referring to, let's assume that a supernatural, all-powerful entity exists. Okay? Now, here's the thing. If a supernatural, all-powerful entity exists, then he couldn't create a stone that he couldn't move. Because if you're all-powerful, by definition, you have all the power. So you can move things. Now, the only way that this would not be possible is if you had someone who was very powerful but not all powerful. So if you were to imply that that's the case, then yes, it's entirely possible to create a stone that you couldn't move. Here's why. Humans, let's take our power for instance, right? We can stack up weights into a tower, and we can move each individual weight, right? We can put it there and assemble it together. But once it's all together, we can't move the whole thing. So if you use that as an example, someone who is very strong but is not all powerful could indeed create something or assemble something that is so heavy that they then could not lift it. Next question, would you ever consider making a date series game? I'm assuming this is like a dating game, like one of those Japanese romance visual novel type games. Um, I had a thought in my head about possibly trying to make some type of game that had a heavy focus on your relationships with other people. Not just romantic, but there would definitely be a heavy romantic component to it. I thought about it. I don't really have any serious ideas for it, though. But it might be interesting to try years off in the future, or I don't know. I might play around with it. Because the social concept is very, very different from how most games work. So I think that's what makes it interesting to me is because the gameplay would just be so different. Although, then again, I haven't played any of that type of like romance genre, so maybe it wouldn't really be that different. It's just something I haven't played, so maybe it wouldn't even be that original. Who knows? Next question. If you were a Holy Grail servant, which class would you be? I don't really get this reference. Holy Grail servant. What is this from? Oh, this is from Type Moon Wiki. Servants are heroic spirits made into special familiars of the highest rank that are bound to the master. Is there a class? Characteristics, positions, variations. I guess this is what they're talking about. Class cards. Summon. Wait, I'm confused. The original purpose of the classes was for which seven of the greatest heroic beasts were summoned by the counterforce in order to write the instruction. You know, I don't even know. I don't understand this, so I can't really answer the question, unfortunately. Next question. What do you find more annoying? Ants, flies, or mosquitoes? So personally, flies, just because we don't get a lot of ants or mosquitoes here, so flies is the one that I see the most. But assuming all three were all like in equal prevalence, then definitely mosquitoes. Because mosquitoes give you those bites, and those bites are annoying. Flies you can sort of deal with. It's annoying, but like if you keep your stuff in the fridge and then you eat your food properly, you just can never leave. Like you can't heat up food and then leave it on the counter for a few minutes while you do something else. You have to immediately bring it and eat it. Whereas mosquitoes, they bite you and then you just have this itching thing for like weeks on your arm, and it's a real pain. Next question. Knowing you enjoy a good burger now and then, I do. Do you think you would enjoy an Asian surf and turf burger? Beef patty, two fried shrimp, kimchi, garlic aioli on the bottom bun, and wasabi aioli on the top bun. Yes, definitely. That sounds delicious. Next question. What is your most favorite thing to do in Skyrim, and would you try Heroes of the Storm someday? So, favorite thing to do in Skyrim. Oh, that's challenging. I think Well, if we're talking about story moments, my favorite part of the story, I think, was probably um, I kind of enjoyed the Civil War storyline between the what were they called, the Stormcloaks and the Imperials. I enjoyed that storyline, but in terms of epicness, the other interesting moments for me were when you went back in time with the Elder Scroll. I think that part was really interesting. And then on my first character in Skyrim, I was a high elf. So high elves have that ability which gives you like really crazy magicka regen for about a minute. So I got to the final fight against Alduin. I just turned that skill on. I took Thunderbolt and I just like dual casted it at him repeatedly straight, and he was dead in like 45 seconds. It just wasn't even close. But I don't know if that was my favorite moment. It's hard to pick one moment out. Okay, so in terms of general activities that I like doing, um, dragon fights are fun. Storming an entire camp of bandits and killing them all, that is very fun. And then also, while I don't do it that much, uh, being a vampire lord or a werewolf, thematically, I think being a werewolf was pretty intense. Because you could run really fast. You were just like galloping at full speed across the wilderness. So that was fairly fun. I don't know if I could pick one of those things as my absolute favorite though, but I enjoyed all of those. Also, I guess related to this, my class, which I usually played generally all the time, was a magic user. I've tried other characters, but magic was just sort of the one that stuck with me. So I would always be a magic character. I liked summons. I liked destruction magic. Illusion always seemed too unreliable because it's always like it only works on people of certain levels, and yeah, you can buff it, but I didn't like having that uncertainty of like if I want to build my build around illusion and I'm gonna go into a fight and not know if I'm this is even gonna work on this character, I'd rather not do that. I'd rather just have some destruction and conjuration that like I know this is gonna work. So and then last question, would you try Heroes of the Storm someday? Probably not. I mentioned this earlier, but basically I only have enough mental bandwidth for one competitive game at a time. And also right now I'm basically cutting out games even more apart from games that I play for research. So I'm not probably not going to have as much gaming time, and I'm not really interested in any more MOBAs. If I were to play anything, it would probably be League of Legends, and I'm not really playing that even right now. But other than that, I just don't really have the time to get into another MOBA. Looks like that is all the questions for this week. So I will catch you guys later. Thanks for watching.